I started, for those who don't know me yet, I started this process of community building almost 20 years ago. I founded one of the first young cooperatives in Portugal, bringing the topics of permaculture, sustainability, before now, most recently, regeneration. And we did a lot of co-creation. We honestly thought, and we did go through so many governance processes, and it was so enlightening, and they were very vivid, they were honest, they were always a sincere try of moving forward together. And I honor that very much. What I also felt is that the legal structure is not ready for that type of governance. So the tension that the actual law creates on these movements of stewardship is real. So I remember that we had in this cooperative, Biovilla, we had 3 layers of governance, which was, sociocracy. We're trying to implement sociocracy at that time, and it was lovely to have different groups and collaboration and very horizontal hierarchy, if hierarchy at all. And then we had the obligation to have a democracy implemented, because cooperatives are structured that way: one co-parent, one vote. And then there was this single admin that was about to, one person losing her own house because to have this loan for the cooperative, the admin would have to take individually the whole responsibility. So that admin was me. And I did sign all the loans for the cooperative. And at that time, in my heart, I felt so right to be co-creating everything, and so wrong to be having the burden alone for everyone. So it was not about whether if we did it right in Bioville at that time or not. It just put me in the context of really thinking about what are we actually ready for. And I think it takes a little bit of humility to understand that collectively, and I say collectively, not within just the group of thinkers and people that are actually trying to push the law and the boundaries to go to ways that are more collaborative and more honest in terms of this. But are the institutions also ready? Are we moving forward together? I don't believe I hope that we don't have to go through a huge clash and a huge crisis so that things could change. I would rather do it peacefully, step by step, with all the institutions engaged. And that's why I'm so convinced that we as citizens, we need also to build what we find relevant, what we believe that we want to create in the world, meaning that if I want to be having a bioregional investment scheme or structure, then I need to create it. I can't be, waiting for the government to decide to have a master plan for a watershed and then deploy that along the elements of the guild. That's probably not going to happen, at least in my lifetime. So this honesty and this humility to move forward with at least a trial, and a pilot, whatever we want to call it, it's very, very important. And I don't know why, but I've been putting myself in those positions of creating those drafts of infrastructure. Maybe that's my function in the ecosystem. Maybe I'm an orchestrator in this case. And I came to the conclusion that probably some of the people that are bringing these honest steps towards something that is more evolved, maybe they need to realize one very important thing is that if we are putting ourselves in this kind of, I don't want to like it leadership, because it's so outdated even as a concept, but if we put ourselves in this role of creating something new, then I think it's all about where do we come from with it. So if I'm looking for power or, visibility or whatever it comes when we are creating something new, in the world, if we are coming from that, we'll probably encounter a lot of consequences on top of whatever it's already hard to create. But if we can put ourselves in the position of, as I mentioned before in other posts, of sincere, deep listening and honest service, maybe we are creating something from the community, because the community is heard. But if we're not engaging in the totally co-creation process in the beginning, maybe it's easier for everyone. And I say this because I remember when I was trying to put together my first cooperative for housing cooperative, and we were co-creating since the beginning. I remember that the moment that I decided to quit was because we took 8 hours, a full day. We got together and we got stuck into deciding whether if the utensils of the kitchen would move from the side of the vegetarians to the sides of the not vegetarians. So there was an implication of budget. Do we need double of the instruments of the kitchen, or can we actually share them? And it took us a full day to get to the end of the day still not having an answer. And it's not about who's right or wrong, it's really the symbolism of the process of co-creation that is such a burden that, in my experience, at least in my own sample, it never got us very far. And I say this in a sad tone, of course, because I would rather do it co-creating all the time than just feeling alone and until I have a draft and deploy that draft, and then going trial and error until I believe it works for the community. So it's like, in my heart, I would rather go the co-creation route, but there's a part of me that is still understanding that we might not be actually ready. And further on, I have decided individually that if I am to engage with my own function, I would have to do it a lot more alone. So the question, because I'm dealing with big amounts of money, I am, people and investors, they invest in people and the trust that they bring, and it's still hard to trust that a whole community is able to manage all the liquidity and the responsibility of receiving so much money as a community. And again, this makes me very sad, but it's a reality and we need to face that. So if you want to bridge big amounts of capital towards community engagement, maybe we need to realize that this intermediation is still needed. And maybe we should trust that. Maybe we should trust the people that are giving it an honest try. And that's why being centered and at service and with a deep sense of contribution is so important for people that are actually taking up these roles in the ecosystem. If they are not coming from that place, then it's going to be totally wrong. So that's the most important thing. So now, and if you have different conclusions and opinions, please share with me. This is just my own thoughts on how co-creation can be so hard, so tough, so disencouraging, even when everyone is honestly trying to build together, but then they get stuck in certain places all over again. And of course, I see cases of such resilient communities that they do this and they get to the point they are thriving, but and I honor that and I admire that so much. Maybe they are outliers, I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing the whole picture, and maybe I'm being very conservative right now, but I am observing a lot of efforts with few results in the community landscape. So yes, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that if we are focused on creating something to the whole, maybe there's this other layer of co-creation, which is coming from the deep listening of the ecosystem and honoring that and putting what we are listening in front and as a priority than our own personal needs. And I know that if we listen to the ecosystem and really pay attention to what is emerging towards us, our strategy is going to be a lot more solid, a lot more relevant. It just makes sense to listen, because if you're serving the community, if you don't listen, then it's just a waste of time and energy to actually start creating that. So what I'm trying to say is that maybe the layer of co-creation that we are now ready to engage with is this honest individuals whose their function in the ecosystem is to put together the drafts of the future layer of collaboration. And instead of the co-creation itself with hundreds, thousands of people, maybe there's layers of even one individual that just listens and puts together a draft plan and then has the humility and sincere commitment to make a trial and error process until it feels that the community is actually served and heard and thrived. So what I'm thinking about is maybe this bioregional investment structure should start with a very classic intermediate SPV, I don't know, and capital comes in with the build of trust and contracts operating and automation of the processes and for transparency purposes. So maybe digital twins, because I'm really focused on getting this green corridor up. So maybe digital twins of the environmental assets to bring transparency and clarity to the process, and even monitoring and all of that. And then by this optimization, even the engagement of the individual elements of the guild to be done equally, and everything is like equal for everyone. And when the community is already engaging in that, and the assets are being valued, and maybe, I don't know, maybe in 5-10 years, and the guild is already functioning a lot better, and the focus is not the focus is consolidated, the bigger whole, the bigger picture, which is nurturing the watershed. Maybe when the community gets to a point that is actually already out of the survival mode but on the thriving mode, maybe the conscious level will enable for a better and more useful collaboration, because everyone would be stepped out from maybe scarcity mode, and that's another topic that we can elaborate, towards collaboration mode. And maybe then the structure that would be a classical SPV might evolve towards a steward-owned company. And elaborating on the scarcity levels, when I was taking my educational eco-village design education from Gaia in Finorn, which is, the Finorn eco-village is a huge reference to us all. One of the books that they cited was mentioning that leadership, or the elements of the community that are dealing with the money, are always center of projection of everyone. And if the community is not thriving, then most of the elements in the beginning are in scarcity mode. And this is so unconscious, because, when we move towards a community, sometimes we make leaps of faith, and then we just stop engaging with the regular system because we want to have our hands in the soil and do different things that we can't monetize yet. So this transition towards a different future sometimes comes with not having the financial abundance that we once had. And I'm not generalizing, I'm just observing a certain pattern among any others that I also see in these processes. And unconsciously, if I I am not resolved with that inside myself, and if I'm working in a community, and if someone is dealing with the money for the community, this book states, and I don't remember the source. If everyone remembers the source of this book, please tell me, because I would love to read it again. It states that all the projections of scarcity, and even the projections of celebration and all of that, but all the projections are going towards the leadership. And no matter what the leadership does, if the individuals are not correcting this internally, then layers of complexity, and maybe the governance is shaken because individuals are not also doing the work. So what I'm trying to say here is that it takes a huge level of personal development and engagement from a place that individuals are pouring to the community and not in an extractive mode. So the patterns, the macro and the macro and the micro are always there. So if individuals are not thriving and did not get to the part of the abundance to thrive and to collaborate coming from a nurturing perspective to the community, then co-creation is really, really, really burdened with that. And then most of the times it does not happen because individuals are stuck in that unconsciously. That's a problem. Well, I'm going around in this topic, but the layers that I'm trying to bring is that when we are actually ready to co-create, all the individuals that are collaborating in that community need to be out of the surviving mode, and they need to be pouring even to the process. And what I mean pouring is nurturing each one another, maybe bringing money and liquidity of their own, having time, not even scarcity on time. So they need to be in a place that they are pouring and not extracting. And this needs to be conscious and visible. And then I think this pattern really pushes the macro pattern towards a more healthy community level. So yes, my conclusion at this moment, I might be totally wrong, and I would love to be totally wrong, honestly, is that we might not be ready yet to co-create everything towards the world that we really want to live in. But there are a few individuals that are making honest tries of orchestrating what they are seeing and listening, coming from a very honest place, and also individuals that they know their function and uniqueness in the guild, and they are doing amazing personal work to be able to engage with communities from that place. So I think we are all doing our best, honestly. Even if I personally suffered a lot with lots of projections, because I've been dealing with fundraising and leadership roles for, I don't know, since the beginning that I started with this community thing. So I'm not taking that too much personal at this moment. I'm trying to find layers, and this here technology really helps. Technology helps to bring layers of transparency and organization that I hope will simplify a lot to us. So maybe next time I can be sharing with you this technological layer that the ecosystem put together, so that we can all rest and calm down and maybe evolve towards a type of governance that we really want to have. And it is so deep in my heart that, well, I believe that we are going to get there. Just not sure if it's in my lifetime, but I would hope. Maybe this new generation accelerates a lot of all of this, and maybe even AI helps us a lot if it's well used. So yeah, conclusion on my side: we are not ready yet to co-create everything from scratch. Unfortunately, we will be soon, and I hope that we find a way to get there as fast as we can, because we need to grow together. And yeah, so for everyone out there that is doing this sincere try, just send me a DM. Let's just communicate. Maybe I'm missing some angle here. I would love to know more from you. And yes, let's do it the best way that we can.